live. Welcome to the Share PLM edition, the second annual Share PLM edition of the Future of PLM Podcast. This is your host, Michael Finocchiaro, and I'm joined by an absolutely amazing panel of people, all of whom were actually at Jerez, including Maria Morris from Share PLM, who is our extremely amazing MC for the second year in a row, just blew us away. We also have Nina, who I had the pleasure to meet, who I hadn't met before. Nina, welcome to our panel. We're very glad to have you. I've got Jos, I've got Pat, Oleg, and Rob. I mean, those who watch the podcast are probably too familiar with them already. Thank you, Pat, so much for making the trip all the way from the United States just to see us. That was amazing to meet you. I think a lot of people.
Thank you much.
I think a lot of people enjoyed Rob's photo of us all fighting. That was a lot of fun too. So great job, Rob. So maybe we just go around the horn. I mean, we had this 2 days of really spectacular presentations. How could you do it better than a venue inside a bodega in Jerez with the beautiful weather? Why don't we hear from you first, Maria, because it's really your event and you did such a spectacular job emceeing. I mean, what was your takeaway from the 2 days?
I think it was a really amazing experience to come back with the second series of the Share PLM Summit. It's always a pleasure to be invited back to MC the event. I always say I have the best job over the 2 days because my team are running around in the back trying to make sure everything is organized, and I just get to have a good time on stage with you all. So feeling very re-energized and motivated to do it all again next year with you all.
Awesome. I wanted to maybe have Nina talk about it because we haven't heard her on the panel yet. Maybe you can introduce yourself because I think folks know who know the rest of us.
Okay, thank you. So Nina Dar, my company is called Cheeky Monkey, and we've been involved in PLM transformations for the last 20 years or more. And from a human perspective, so it was really lovely to see a new wave of people trying to push the human agenda in PLM through what Share PLM try and do. And of course, as you've said, who wouldn't want to go to a conference that is in a vineyard? So all great and really spectacular background, very human focused agenda. But I think the magic comes, as always, for the people that attend. And I think the attendees, like I know all of you from all of my 20 years working in PLM. So there's a lot of experience around, and there's a lot of people who are looking for change. And so the biggest takeaway for me was that the conversations that broke out were dynamic, disruptive, and really a set of people who were curious about what happens now with PLM, AI, the whole digital mashup that we have to face in our everyday lives now. And that was the best reason for going.
That's awesome. Oleg, you did not dress up this time for it.
Thank you.
How was your trip? Because you and Patrick both flew over from the United States for this. So was it worth it? Are you glad that you flew over from Boston?
You see, the proximity of Boston is understated. It's almost Europe, right?
Yeah.
So you can think about this. I think my perspective on the event, which I think is second event, is getting better every time. So what I like especially in this event is that it breaks the normal patterns of the PLM event, because in the normal event it's always everything is so scripted, because you have the keynote with the great news, and then you get customers that come and say more or less, we've been in a terrible situation with ABC, and then we amazingly found XYZ, and now our life is so great, and it's more or less, you can say it about every single presentation, and then you get some coffee breaks and the reception. So I think what I like especially in Share PLM is that it's trying to break this narrative, and I think it's successful, and I think it's I added it to the list of my events that, together with a few others, where the conversation between people are more important than presentations. I mean, I do not disrespect the presenters. I think it's amazing line of presenters, but the conversation between people are more important than presentation. And I have to say that when you go in the place that have wine fumes, you can expect after some time to be a little bit drunk. So I don't know if it was wine or PLM, but it was successful. So that's it. Thank you.
Patrick, you also flew over from the States, and this was your first event like Nina, right?
Yes, right, exactly. And I, when Maria posted the first event a year ago, I said, "Oh, I so want to go to this thing," and there's just no way I could pull that together in time. So, very early this year, months in advance, I started planning the trip. Let me say, my trip from Detroit to Jerez, my flight landed in Boston, so I also came from Boston. However, my suitcase stayed in Boston even once I was in Madrid, so that posed a little bit of a challenge early on in the project. But I just had so much FOMO last year as everybody was posting onto LinkedIn how much fun they were having. It's like, oh my gosh, I've got to go to this thing. So anyway, I planned the trip very early. It's to tell you the truth, one of the major PLM companies is having their user event literally biking distance from my house, bicycling distance. Tomorrow I'm going to bicycle past it, right? I just don't have an interest in going to it because it's kind of the same stuff over and over again, right? So the tacit learning that we get by interacting with individuals, actually I think there's a real advantage in being a little remote in Jerez. The fact it's a little difficult to get to means you really want to be there, right? So in any event, I had a lot of fun with it. I definitely intend to go next year. I encourage anybody, anybody in my PLM sphere to look at Spain for their PLM conferences next year.
Yeah, I did a great post about that. If you want PLM, go to Spain. That was great. Rob, you did not bring the Ferrone players this time to head us. Like, we had this great murder mystery last year, and were they on strike? I guess they were on strike or something.
That was it. There was the script union strike, so we couldn't get the screenplay written this year. I think there's a couple of things that stood out for me, and one of them was the diversity of the human topic. So people in the past have, when you talked about people in PLM, and that was part of my presentation last year, or the sketch, I talked about it's not just about the users, and it's not just about org change management, and it's not just about training, but the whole endeavor is a people endeavor, because you're thinking about the vision. What's the business sense behind it? Who cares? Who's motivated? There's human emotions involved, and so we just saw so many different elements of the human condition associated with PLM, and every single one of them was a light bulb moment for me, and I think it just helps to encourage people that this is a people sport. And the other part of it is whenever I spoke to anyone at the conference, it turns out that they had somehow worked with other people at the conference, and so you realize that everyone knows everyone, and everyone's kind of worked with other people in some way or another, and they've got history with people, and so there's this idea of community, but it's very much a team sport, which is that's one thing that stuck with me as well. And the idea that we're in this together, and ultimately we've all got the right intentions. We want to help the customers, and we've got businesses, and we need to make the businesses run. But ultimately, we're there to create customer success, and we're going to do that by doing it together. So this idea of community coming together with a shared vision around the people part of PLM is just so energizing. You're muted, I think.
Well, people got fed up with hearing me snoring and hemming and hawing, so I decided. Nina gave us, it's nice as a question, so I'm going to pick and choose from here. I'm going to ask Jos this one.
Okay, maybe
definitely
maybe at the last one,
Well, no,
maybe
I
as the
wanted to
last one,
ask
I
you
can give my
I wanted to ask you that in the age of AI and digital overload, are human condition and presence becoming the real differentiators for this kind of conference? And that's a perfect Jos question.
So I will first start with my impression, if you allow me. Because
Yeah, of course.
I'm used to be the last speaker in the conference most of the time, so no problem with that. So first of all,
Denise
for me,
beat you to that
no,
one this time, though.
So for me, it started as a reunion of old friends. I think, Nina, we met in 2012, and you stood out as a soulmate also with human interest in PLM. And it took 6-7 more years till I had my soulmates with Share PLM on the human side of PLM. But also, I was glad to see Patrick face to face. And Oleg, we once in a while meet, but also it was great again to spend days together. And the rest, I think in Europe, we once in a while we see each other. So for me, it was this community that was the most important. The discussions, as you said, Oleg, I think beyond the presentations, although every presentation on its own also brought something new for me. Some were expected, but some were really new things. And that's what I liked, because we are focusing on the human side. So you don't have those industry-specific discussions on bill of materials or even fights on bill of materials. We didn't have during the conference. So, I mean, that makes this event unique. And considering still Jerez is hard to reach, but it's the best place to have this human-centric approach. So I'm afraid that if you would do it in Paris, we get stuck up in high-tech buildings and environments, and we lose this human connection. So now, time for the questions.
So the question was, in the age of AI and digital overload, are human connection and presence becoming the real differentiators for this kind of show?
I think that's what we noticed. I mean, it's very boring to talk with ChatGPT or other AI tools. I mean, now you even have more time to spend on human interactions. And the only big challenge is don't get distracted by all those AI tools and capabilities sitting behind the screen. Connect again. I think it's also something we learned after COVID. Working from home was nice, but after when we start meeting people again, that's where it started. At the end, we are all humans. And that's, I think, the big importance.
Maria, one of the questions from Nina, I like this one for you because you're really the breathing soul of this event, right? How do you measure the ROI of a conference beyond just leads and sales and attendance numbers?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, going back a little bit as to why we created the summit, we didn't go into it thinking this is something that's going to make us money. In fact, we were happy to invest in a conference that we really believed in, because ultimately, I mean, as I think you can all relate to, we've spent many years attending PLM conferences where we hear lots of amazing success stories, what went well, how much money we've saved, time we've saved. And I think ultimately one of the things we were missing was a bit of that human reality of this type of transformation. So what went wrong? What didn't go as planned? What was your initial strategy, and how did the strategy develop over time? Because I think it's in those lessons learned that people can actually take away meaningful thoughts and opinions, and they can actually start relating somebody else's transformation and project to their own. If we just say everything went great, it's hard. Yes, we're happy for you, but it's hard to actually take something meaningful and tangible from it. So that was one thing we wanted to bring to the conference. We wanted to bring a sense of humanness. So bring people back down to earth, tell us what went wrong, how did you put it right, and let us take something meaningful away from your presentation. But also the sense of, obviously at Share PLM, we spend a lot of our time working in projects where the people side is what's really holding transformation back. It's not the technical side. And again, very often, even our customers are saying, it's the people side that's really the make or break of these projects. This isn't something that was ever reflected in previous conferences we went to. If very little, if not ever, were the people side actually reflected in these talks. So we also wanted to bring the focus back to people as well and provide a space for our customers, our followers, people who are interested in the space, to actually come together and talk about the more unspoken topics and learn from each other and connect with people that way. And so for us, the ROI has always been, let's make sure people can go away and say, yes, you achieved what you set out to do. And I think listening to your guys' intros, I'd like to say we've achieved that in the last couple of years.
I think you get a couple of thumbs up for that. I hope Nina joins us again. She must have had a networking issue. I like the question she put here about the moments at the summit that felt the most authentic, memorable, or impactful. If I speak for myself, I thought that the talk from Dr. Andreas Wenk of Pepperell, his whole thing of, at the end, if we couldn't get a good decision, we would do it at the football table. That was awesome. That was just very, very human and very relatable. I also like, it was an interesting one, the one from Matthias Gabriel of SMS, where he's talking literally about how do you do a merger and acquisition and how do you keep continuity of PLM. I thought that was a really fascinating one, what other conference would you hear a story like that, right? That has nothing to do with the vendor. That's really purely a people thing. I thought that was amazing. What other moments, anybody speak out, but which of those presentations that really resonated with you guys? Go ahead, Jos.
Okay, so the one that really stood out on day one for me was both Xavier, because coming from a lean transformation project,
was good, yeah.
I mean, it was not our bread and butter, but the human side, it was so recognizable, and he used such a good story also, the pyramid upside down. And the other one was the one from Susanna, which was a typical example of what we discussed in our presentations. It's not a nice linear process from left to right, PLM implementation. It's a struggle, it's a journey, but you have to create stronghold and place. And I think these are really the things that where you learn and realize again, PLM is so broad, and it's very much related on the human side. So how you organize yourself and how you create your strongholds in an organization. That was really for me day one.
Yeah, I forgot the guy's name. He was a Spanish guy that's moved to Scandinavia.
Alex San Pedro. I was about to bring him.
Alex San Pedro.
I was about to bring him up as well, right?
Yeah, no, the SKF group. That was a really good one. Yeah.
So he did a really fantastic presentation on how to explain the value of PLM to how do you get budget for it. And the way to put that together. And it's really, there's a couple of presentations that was super pragmatic. There was the other company from Sweden, the system implementer. Help me.
Assa Abloy? No, not Antonio.
No.
Right?
It was one of the vendor presentations, but they
QCM probably.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah. So apologies for forgetting the name, but they also then talked through the process of how they developed the requirements for a PLM, transformation or integration. It was so really, pragmatic working level explanations of the realities of, doing the work we do. So not the big picture digital thread concepts, but really the actual
down in the trenches kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love that.
How about you, Oleg? What was your favorite?
Well, this is one of those cases where it's very hard to pick because there are so many good presentations there. I think Susanna's presentation about PLM implementation was really landing very strong because this is where it switched from the glorified PLM success to something that pragmatic and practical, and it's you stuck in problems. Like obviously you're stuck in problems, and I think another presentation that I picked on very 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 interesting, and again second time in a row. Like last year it was also the presentation from Assa Abloy. I think
Antonio's always great.
Yes, Antonio. What is remarkable in that one is because it is a company that acquiring company every 3 weeks. Now, how you organize everything for the company that is such dynamics and growing and cannot adapt and change, that's a really, really, really challenge that I think it's a very important lesson learned from what they did. And on top of this, like every presentation is also then conversation after the presentation. And that's it's the most interesting part, because what I found very remarkable that under every presentation, then you have conversation with this person. you find something really, really interesting that was kind of behind the scene. So that's what was very interesting.
So Nina, what about you? What was your favorite presentation? Which one resonated the most?
Well, of course, all the people here was my favorite. Jos was my favorite.
The panel discussion was your
so.
favorite.
Personally, I loved the Gentelligence one. I felt that was complete future thinking, and the space that I take in the PLM world is more pushing people to see that over the years, perhaps PLM software has its limitations that create so many issues, actually. And most of the time, we have to step backwards and say, well, what is the capability that the customer site actually needs? And what are they trying to do? Where are they trying to go with it? Why would they want to invest in this product life cycle? What does it mean for them? What's it going to deliver them? And so often those conversations are led by software first, and it always causes a problem, always. And what Gentelligence were trying to do was to say, don't have the software conversation first. And they were taking that even further to say that data is where we must be at. I mean, we've all said this for years. This is not new to us. We say it and we say it and we say it, but people don't believe it. And what they were trying to do was say, there's different ways of looking at this. And especially now with board conversations being absolutely fixated on investment in AI, this is how perhaps you can draw parallels to this, back to the product life cycle, back to the data model. And I just think that is the approach going forward. So I was so happy to see that.
I thought Helen's was really good too about the economic piece. I mean, I'd never had that perspective. I changed my website thanks to that one. The whole 3 out of 4 trick was a nice one.
Okay.
So we were just talking about some of the presentations, and I think we wanted to put a special mention to Helena's keynote, which was pretty good.
Helena's presentation was that it was so raw and so honest because they used their own business as the example. And I think for anybody, I don't know if people get to see recordings if they weren't at the conference, but it's one that lots of people would want to see because she's talking about the realities of trying to run a young business in the age of AI. And she did it in such an honest way. Now, it led to lots of debate, and I don't think there was at all the amount of questions that could have come at the end of that, because it's about cutting consultancy time because, you know, AI will take a lot of the burden. Now, these things are up for a lot of debate. And again, it would have been a fantastic thing to debate afterwards, because there's no doubt she sets a fantastic scene. She sets the great case study. But then at the end of it, what are we saying? That actually AI is going to take people's jobs, is going to do all the things that people are worried about. And do we want to let that happen? And of course, for anyone who's read my book knows that I am pushing a different agenda on this, that these decisions are not made yet. And it is up to us to have a say on what we want. Definitely the tools exist and they can take us in lots of directions. And I think definitely in a year's time for the next summit, that should reappear with the debate of what's the societal impact if we do take that scenario and scale it.
Yes.
Yeah. So Helena and I, we discuss on a regular basis the AI impact, and we are following in one way the same positive mindset of what is possible. But I think but at the end we divert. I'm a little bit less optimistic that humanity will survive AI in the way it is expected. Like Nina said, we need a revolution. We need to take care of our humanity in the context of AI. And I think, it was an inspiring speech. I think that makes you, in one way, motivated to work with the AI and not to be afraid of it. I think that was also the big message. And stay human.
Oleg and Rob?
Yeah, that's.
Well, I was just going to add that I heard this. Sorry, I'll let you go.
No,
Rob,
that's fine.
Go ahead, Rob.
All right.
Okay, I'll go.
I
want to highlight.
There are two things that's very interesting, and I capture it in Helena's presentation. And it's always on the one side, it's always human and the human perspective. On the other side, I'm sure you remember, she was talking about enterprise harness and how to actually bring AI to the organization. And I think it was very remarkable that she connected these two things together. Although the most important thing, and that's continued in the conversation, and the topic that I picked on this is that for everyone who sells arrows these days, it's a time to stop. Because what AI will do is will force us to stop selling arrows and will force us to start selling something else. And that is something that I think is a continuous conversation after that keynote that I'm having with few people.
Nice.
Did you say hours or hours?
Hours, not hours, hours.
So,
let me explain, Jos. It was an old joke, and Fino can cut this out if he wants. Then the plumber, not digital plumber, the real plumber, was invited to the home to fix something, and he was looking into things, and then he made one tap, and everything was fixed. And they asked, "What is the bill?" And said $1,000. He said, "Well, how come $1,000? You just make a small tap." He said, "Actually, tap is $1, and $999 is for knowing where to tap." So that's about selling hours.
Yeah.
Go ahead. So Rob, then Pat, and then anybody else, and then we'll finish.
Following on from Oleg's comment, and this is something I brought up in a panel discussion, but a company I was speaking to recently, a consulting company, is planning to see a drop in their time and material activity by 40%. So that's almost half their business that's going to drop away. But at the same time, they are expecting over 40% of the business to grow with AI topics. So there's going to be a give and take. How much of that is what that means to people, Nina, is another question. But I think the one thing or challenge I've got around Helena's presentation is the about the transference of work to be more creative and human work. I think in theory that's great, but who's going to be paying for that? That's my big question. And so is that something I think? Can we influence the march of AI? I don't know. I've mentioned it a few times. Is it going to take a revolution to stop this? Are the people going to rise up when they start losing their jobs and everyone goes into, well, not everyone, but more and more people start going into poverty? Let's see. But I think one potential way out of it is to find a way to monetize the human work that can't be done by AI. But that's the way that we could take back the power. But that's not an easy thing
I
to
have
do.
Actually an answer to you, Rob. It's very interesting. Last week I was on the panel here in Boston with the Gartner tech CEOs, and they've been talking about AI. So here's an interesting number to take and think about this deeply. So the average revenue of a company with AI for the moment is a benchmark is 1 million per person annually. It's 10 times bigger than an average for a non-AI company, which is about $120,000 per person. So it's just a massive shift in the value and in eventually in money. So it's very interesting.
Where's that money going to come from? Because if people haven't got jobs, they're not going to be buying products and services. So they can have that leverage, but the market, the money needs to be there in order to fund those companies.
Yeah,
but they measure revenues.
The hyperscalers are pulling back. I mean, the Microsofts and the Metas and the others are saying we're spending too much on AI. And there's a variety of people coming out saying that humans are cheaper. But I want to flip to something else. I want to flip to Jos's talk and his reference to Daniel Kahneman. And if you saw me in WhatsApp, I posted that I was drinking a German beer at an Irish pub in Jerez, Spain, right? So reading Kahneman. And Kahneman, Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, I see this as antithetical to artificial intelligence. That artificial intelligence reinforces system one thinking, which is the fast, quick, low energy, highly biased thinking. And we're losing track of system two thinking, which is the more critical thinking that, and I won't go deeper into this too much, but particularly in the PLM space, where a tiny little mistake causes multi-billion-dollar and multi-hundred fatalities. I have real concerns regarding the use of AI in PLM, and we could have this as a conversation at some point.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you pay attention? The conversation goes much faster when we know that it's not real time live.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I wanted to ask, come back to Maria in terms of the organization, because last year there was a bit of concern because the sponsors were sort of off in a corner. And this year you put them really at the center, right? I mean, they were right next to the food and everything. Also, if you look at, no, but they were much more visible. It was cool too, because you had these 2 breaks where the point was to get a tour of the booths, which was a good idea. If you look at the number of presentations, there were 10 or 11 case studies and 7 sponsor presentations. And I felt the sponsors played the game. They weren't just there purely advertising. They were talking about the human and their particular solution. So how did you guys come to that? I mean, that's really hard to do. I think congratulations on doing that. It's really
Thank you. Yeah, well, of course, to put such an event together, you need sponsors to not only financially support you, but also sponsors that believe in your message and what it is that you're trying to achieve with such an event. So luckily, all of our sponsors are absolutely incredible. And right from the beginning, we made it clear that the purpose of this event isn't a sales event. It's an event to bring people together, to share knowledge and learn from each other's expertise. And so we told them from the beginning that their presentations needed to, of course, show what it is that they're specialized in, how they support their own customers, but also bringing the focus back to people. So a lot. We had quite a few software vendors, for instance, sponsoring us. And we put the focus on how do they actually support users to adopt the system itself, not just a technical presentation, which I think is quite different to other events they've sponsored and the type of presentations they've given. But again, we were so lucky that all of our sponsors believe as well in a kind of people-first approach to the success of these types of transformations. And again, last year, we took on all the feedback that we got, whether that was from sponsors or from attendees in general. And one of the biggest feedbacks we got was that people wanted to spend more time with the sponsors. So last year, they just had their keynote in their booth. And this year, we tried to create an environment where not only they were closer to us all, but also that they were able to be given a specific slot for everyone to go around and learn more about what it is they're doing, listen to some case studies. And yeah, from what I've heard, people really liked it. In fact, the feedback we've gotten so far is they wish there were 2 rounds of the sponsors tour. So that's another thing we're considering for next year. But I think that's just such a compliment to all of the sponsors that we have, that people want to spend that time with them and that they don't feel like they're just going to be pushed a new system or software or technology. They actually were able to learn something. So yes.
Yes, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, maybe I can add to this. I fully agree with Maria. Finding sponsors for such an event, human-centric, it's very challenging because most software companies are there to sell their tools. And I think it was a genuine interest of those sponsors in the human side. And I think, a big round of applause for the sponsors because we need them to make the conference affordable. But they also did a good job in their sessions and presentations.
I mean, one of which is Eris, who's also supporting this podcast. So thank you very much, Eris.
We didn't know that.
I think it's a fantastic opportunity as well for sponsors for next year too, because if you're a company that's trying to position yourself and differentiate yourself, especially system implementers, etc. It's a great one to attend and speak to your human capabilities. I know of a case recently where I was talking to a company that selected their implementation partner based on their credibility around org change management and transformation management, and so it's a valuable differentiator. And if you can get people along to the conference as a sponsor and talk to that, I think you're putting yourself in a good position.
Any of us want to add to that?
Yeah, let me add just a little bit. In addition to what was on the stage and from the sponsors, what I get out of so many conferences, and I want to say it was even better here, is the side conversations. And in my comments on the event, what you see on the stage is what is, and what you talk about in the corners is what could be. And you need to have this. You need to have the sponsors. You need to have the big ideas. You need to have the stuff on the stage, which attracts people to this conference. But I don't want to miss out on the side conversations, which are the things that we'll be talking about maybe 2, 3, 5 years from now, right? Are those conversations that we have. A couple of conversations I had, and I won't go into the details, but at least, I teach PLM, and at least 2 people came up to me with an interest in teaching. And I just love supporting that idea. And I think if you look at long-term cultural change in the PLM space, particularly a human-centered sort of change, it gets to who is willing to teach. So anyway, so I just wanted to do it. Oh, and I want to add one more thing to a person on site. Nina, there were 3 events at the end, 3 individual workshops at the end. I attended Nina's, and
I was going to get to the workshop.
Wonderful job with that. So I'm sure Jos and whoever did the AI was wonderful too, but Nina did a wonderful job.
Yeah, I did. I was on the AI one. That was really well done. What made it, Nina, why don't you talk about that? That's an interesting, because I didn't get to hear about it. So I'd like to hear so how did you, well, first of all, Maria, last year you guys had the 2 workshops. This year you went with 3 of them, and that seemed to work really well. So Nina, tell us about your workshop.
Before I tell you about my workshop, and I think I've been naughty and not completed my feedback on the conference. A real reminder to do so. So many people said to me, and myself, thought I wanted to attend all 3 workshops, right? So that was huge feedback.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be 2 out of 3, right? At least.
Yeah, exactly. And my workshop was fascinating, even from design, because I had the pleasure of working with Christina from Share PLM. We were bringing together 2 very different sides, actually, of a human approach to change in the PLM world. And also my style is so disruptive. And so it was such an interesting experiment, even us designing it together. And I kept saying to Christina, people should be watching this. They should be watching the conversation we're having, even in putting the workshop together. And then when we were there and we were live, I encouraged Christina to say, go with it, go with this, because there's a chance here it will not go to plan. And I tend to very much feed from the room. And actually, the energy in our room was a little bit low, and it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. Because we were talking about the standard stuff. This was my concern. People have heard this, you talk about the human approach to change. God, really, people know it. What people don't know is how to flip the switch on it. So what it feels like, how do you get that emotion going? How do you get that emotion in the room? And so to get the emotion in the room, I went completely off script, and we did some improv, and we did some role play and split the room into 2. And they had a brief, which is just like the brief that we always get. There was not enough information, not enough time. People didn't really know what they had to deliver back, and they had to just go away and do it. Two sets, both with opposing views. So the role play was they had to come back. One of them had to do it right. One of them had to do it badly. And I have 2 people that were here, so they can tell you themselves. But I thought it was brilliant. And the energy in the room went from a very average sort of 20, 30 to bang, 100%. And it was a miracle to watch, and for everybody else to watch, that is how you could actually flip the switch from in a real environment.
I want to let Rob talk about it, but let me just interject real quick. As a teacher, something I find, and I teach an online class, but when I put students into breakout rooms, it really elevates the energy. And when you put them into Zoom breakout rooms, you can see their microphones as to whether or not they're talking. And there are people who will not say a word if I'm in front of a class, but you put them into a breakout room and suddenly the microphone is bumping up and down, bumping up and down, bumping up and down. They just can't stop talking. But Rob, please talk about our experience in Nina's class.
Yeah, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I had a session with Nina a while back because I was running a workshop, and I thought I'd go to the guru of workshops and people transformation, Nina. And I said, Nina, how do you approach these, and what are the kind of things you ask? And so she started. I was getting ready to write down. Okay, ask this thing here. Then you go on and ask this thing here. And she was, she's got a style Nina has, and I didn't really understand it until I experienced it. And in classic workshops you have, or in sessions like that, the person leading it might ask a question, and then they'll vibe off the answer and kind of go with it. But Nina would kind of get up close to the person she's asking the question, really get into their space. And the person would give an answer, and she'd be bang back in with another question directly, even challenging them and forcing people to really check their thinking and really get to the deeper second question, or the deeper underlying topic or issue. And so that was amazing to see that happening. And then, as Nina said, once we kind of split into our groups, and you had a group that was effectively not ready for change versus a group that was ready for change, and it just made it very, very obvious what that looks like, and also more importantly, what it felt like. So when you're in that situation, how do you feel, and how does it feel to vibe as a team? And it felt amazing, and that's something that there's a real art to the human side of business, and we experienced it, we lived it.
Jos, you did another workshop, right? Wasn't yours the other one, the sustainability one? You're on mute.
So with
there you are.
With the QCM team and with Patrick Williamson from Aras, we did the sustainability and digitalization workshop pub quiz. It was part of partly education and partly also, I would say, trying to get a discussion on where are you making your next steps, yes or no. And one of the challenges was we had more consultants than people working in companies. So finding field experience was a little bit difficult. And because sustainability is for most companies still an unknown area. It's on their marketing website already, but the execution still has to follow. Coming back to the workshops, I would like to attend them all, 3 of them. And I think indeed workshops make this conference different, because otherwise you're dead by PowerPoint and you run from break to break. Now in this workshop, as you said, well, people can speak up. In his op-ed, you said it there. So we should keep it, but the challenge is to keep the parallels. In one side, it works having them parallel, but 3 workshops in a row would be too much for me.
Well, was yours because I was Oleg and I were in the AI one, and that was a little bit more people speaking and a bit of audience participation with an app on the iPhone. It sounds like Nina's was far more. A lot workshop, breaking into groups, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What was yours, more interactive, or was also sort of less so?
Yeah. We had in one way a pub quiz with 10 questions, but between the questions also we had some discussion points and some theory about circular economy, about digital product passport. So it was trying to be entertaining but also educational.
Okay.
Well, yes, I have to say I apologize to the other workshops that I didn't attend, but when Jos told me a pub quiz was involved, I had to attend his workshop.
The thing is, though, I think you could take the Nina Dar and Christina approach and apply it to any of those workshops, because it wasn't, even though the kind of topic of Nina and Christina's one was people and org change, etc. I think those, just the way it was done could transform any of the workshops on the topics and the way that they're being discussed, and really elevate it beyond classic workshops that we're familiar with.
And I'll switch back to my class, but which again, the title of the class is Product Lifecycle Management. I open up with a simulation that is designed to just frustrate the crap out of my students, which is so much fun for me, right? So, but it sets up the rest of a 15-week semester, and I think there's ways to do similar things in conferences, or potentially even before conferences. But it's a terrific icebreaker. With their frustration, they start building social bonds, and then the social bonds carry on through. And when I get evaluations at the end of the semester, what they always ask for are more simulations. So the breakout rooms, and somebody was using Menti. I forget who. I know somebody was using Menti.
It was the AI one.
We should talk about the Nest.
I was going to get to that. I wanted to just mention, I also had a panel discussion. I thought it went really well. I was very happy with what Christina was anchoring that with me from Share PLM. She did a fantastic job. And I had Susanna, who we've talked about her presentation. I really appreciated that. Linda, who did not talk this year, but we were very happy to have Linda Valmet. And then, of course, the Eternal Martin and Rob. So, Rob, what did you think about that panel before we talk a little bit about the Nest thing?
Yeah, it was a great panel discussion, because I think you had so many different perspectives and very real perspectives as well. So it wasn't just, we think AI is going to be doing this, but it was actually, this is how AI is in our company, and these are the things we know, these are the things we don't know, as Jos picked up in his the post that one of the answers was, I don't know. And so it was enlightening and educational, and I think the audience was engaged, and you did a good job of hosting it, Fino.
Appreciate
Maria,
that.
what's your
I do have some feedback on the panel, actually, because I'm not disagreeing with all those things, but I think that panel was chock block full of expertise, right? And it was great watching you all talk about your expertise, but it would have been better if we could have participated with the panel, because I think there were loads of people, including me in the audience, that wanted to just say, hey, when you're talking about that, what about this? What did you actually mean by that? So I've seen panels before where everybody introduces themselves and you get this wow moment, which you definitely would have done with this panel, when you understand what everyone's doing. And then instead of the panel just talking to each other, it's thrown right out to the audience. And the audience participates with the panel. And it just turns into a whole big room experience. And I have seen it done. It isn't as chaotic as it sounds. It's really something quite special. And I think the quality of the people on the panel, and yourself, Fino, that you could have easily for next year. My vote is the big room panel.
I was still following on the influence of seeing Monica Schnittger manage 2 panels at the Siemens PLM Components event in Cambridge, and she did such an amazing job that I wanted to do this similar to hers, and plus obviously extract as much as I could from the brilliant people that I was given. But yeah, I'm always up for improvement, and that sounds interesting. It sounds terrifying, but it sounds very interesting idea. So for those that weren't there, we had drinks the night before. We had this whole day of conferences, and then we had this special event, which was the opening of Share the Nest in Helena. Maria, I know Paula's not here, but maybe you could talk for Paula and talk about the Nest a bit.
Of course. So the Nest is a super exciting initiative that's from our side has been going on for a little while, because there was a renovation involved and a few delays, as you can expect. But the Nest itself was designed as a place in which we can, again, bring people together, avoid pure connection just over Zoom or Teams, and actually bring people together to focus on various topics. So whether it's simply a team that wants to come together, similar to Andreas when he said we had to just get everyone off site to really boil down for a week on what decisions we need to make, how we're going to make them, offering a place where people can do that out of their office space, also with the ability for the Share PLM team to help facilitate those discussions and sessions, but also to help people explore different avenues within the space. So, for example, at the end of June, we're hosting a hackathon. So we're Lovable Hackathon. So it's essentially for vibe coders, people who aren't necessarily super techie in that way, but also want to keep up to date with all of the changes that are coming in terms of AI, and making sure that people are able to explore these types of tools in kind of a safe environment where they have the space to make mistakes and try things out. So the Nest is kind of a place where we can bring small teams together and really go deep into whatever topics that they're needing to. So yeah, it was really great. And Paola, who you mentioned, Fino, she's our CEO of the Nest. She's also based in Jerez, so she was kind of the inspiration to bring people there. And yeah, I think you guys will be able to concur that the Jerez is a city that when you're there, you really feel like you can slow down. It kind of forces you. It's also not the easiest place to get to, which I think is also really good for the purpose, because you're able to actually really get out of your comfort zone, slow right down. It's nothing like where most of us are coming from. And then you're able to really focus on a specific topic at hand. So yeah, that's the Nest.
Yeah, it was really cool. And then you guys inversed the thing. Last year we had the flamenco the last day, and we had anyway, that was a lot of fun. It was really wonderful. The wine tasting was the day before, and we switched it. That was really cool. I also wanted to another question is I wanted to actually put to Nina, because I liked it, is the if our conference is still designed about just knowledge sharing, or is it about validation and visibility? I like that question you put in the list.
So, I mean, I like Maria's answer before about the ROI of a conference, the reality check. Sadly, we are still so bound by some old-fashioned traditions, right? Who sponsors a conference? So it becomes about validation and visibility, doesn't it? Because sponsorship just drives that, and the sponsors want to be there, want to be seen. People want to be seen there. I mean, the whole FOMO thing that Pat talked about, it becomes that. Everyone was posting, so that I think will increase. So that's just about visibility and validation. But the real value of conferences going forward, especially when budgets are so tight and people have to just scrabble around to get any kind of personal development, investment, or anything, conferences aren't really related to that. And I think I had this conversation with somebody actually at the event, where we were saying, wouldn't it be great if conferences were seen as a training ground, that they were educational beyond a sponsorship sort of visibility thing, that the workshops were fundamental to people learning something, and that became part of the business case of a conference. And I can get really carried away with this, actually, as with most things. But I think, what about a conference that is just crowdfunded? Has no sponsors whatsoever, and the sponsorship comes from the people who want it. And I know that you think that's like an entrance fee, that's what you pay. It's kind of not what I mean. But I just think there is a time for a turning point in our conference. And I think Share PLM are doing that. They're doing it within their constraints of reality at the moment. And I think, how amazing would it be if they weren't bound by those restrictions?
Excellent.
Can I just add something to that?
Okay, sorry. Just Maria, and then Jos, then Oleg, and then I have a question for Rob before we get out of here. Go ahead, Maria.
One thing I was just going to say, maybe I slightly disagree in certain elements with with your answer, Nina, only because I think if you're somebody who just wants a yes man and you want to attend a conference where someone's going to say to you, everything you're doing is amazing, I completely agree with your approach and strategy, then actually I would say the summit probably isn't the place for you, because one thing that I think is so great about the community we've created at the summit, and even you can see that through the presentations, people aren't all singing off the same hymn sheets. They're disagreeing with each other. They're suggesting different ideas, different approaches. And I think actually that's what makes it so great, because people feel safe in the environment where they can actually say, you know, thanks for sharing your opinion, but I actually would do it this way, or I would do it that way. And actually so many people came to me during the conference and said, there are so many people, even about yourself, Nina, where people were like, Nina was really challenging my traditional way of thinking, and no one had ever made me look at this differently. And so I think that's what's really great about the summit, because if you're scared to be challenged, probably don't come. But if you want to come and expand your way of thinking and hopefully leave with some really positive takeaways and potential lessons learned that you can implement into your own transformations, then I think it's definitely the place to be.
Awesome.
Yeah, I just think it can be more of that. So I don't know if I said something so I was pushing them more of that.
Jos, you were next.
Yeah.
Jos, Oleg, and then I had a question to Rob, and then Pat. Go ahead.
Okay. So I just want to quote Helena Lander, who said, I never really took the time to invest in myself. She always sent people from her team to this type of conferences, and now she realized what she has been missing in the human-centric conferences. I think that's also a big compliment, Maria, to the team and the organization of the conference.
Yay! Oleg, you had your hand up.
Yes, I found very interesting the question about ROI, because I mean, in general, it's about sales. Sales can be boring because on one side you always buy from IBM because no one will fire you for buying from IBM. But on the other side, what I found for the last years, especially experience at Openbaum, is that people don't buy best products. So people buy from people that they trust. So, and I think that's something that brings a difference in the human perspective. So like typical ROI from a conference, if you talk to marketing managers that put budget and they say how many leads you bring from the conference. Oh, great, I brought 10 leads. It cost me $10,000. I mean, that's the ROI narrow, but I reverse it and I said it's differently. This is amount of people that you now get trust with, and that's an opportunity to sell them. I mean, in a good way. This is what can lead and make a difference. So this is where I see the new type of ROI. It's a trust and how you gain trust from people, and this is the different way how you measure all these events. So I think it's an ultimate place to gain trust. It's hard to gain trust from the virtual presentation, and it's much easier to do in a personal conversation. So this is where it makes difference for me. And another comment I wanted to make, you asked about the workshops, and I think AI was easy and hard at the same time. Because easy because everyone speaks about AI. It's so easy. I mean, you don't need to explain why we need to talk about AI. And but the second thing is hard is because if you think about this, it's like AI. If I can compare, it's a kind of invention of electricity and invention of databases. So it's will become so much broadly adopted, but it will be adopted so differently. And the conversation in this room was remarkable because at first everyone already use AI. I mean, okay, so you don't need to convince anyone. Everyone already there. But what do you do with this? And how you innovate with this? This is where the real questions are coming from. And this is where I found it's very easy and hard at the same time. So, yeah, that's kind of thing.
If I can react to the first part of what you said, I love how you said this kind of conference builds trust, because you think about it, when you go to a bigger commercial conference like the one that's happening in Detroit right now, or ITMS or any of those, it's not really about trust at all. It's more like it's just trying to get swag, right? Trying to get more swag than the other people, and trying not to be completely brainwashed by all the the sales presentations, right? Pat, I think you had a comment, and then I had a question for Rob.
Sure, yeah, and I'm glad Oleg spoke, because I think this picks up on both what Nina and Oleg talked about. There's two well-known B2B sales books, The Challenger Sale and The Challenger Customer. And one of the things they talk about is that your customer is 60% of the way through the decision-making process before you know that he exists. So your customer is doing their research. They might show up at Realize Live and not tell you that they're there, right? So, but where can you find that early stage research? And I'm really big on the idea that PLM starts with OCM. That don't buy the technology is the you go to the big players, you go to all the players. The technology is not that different. The real difference maker is whether or not you're dealing with organizational change. And kind of to Oleg's point about finding that trustworthy partner, a big thing in those books is the person who does not ask you what keeps you up at night, but instead tells you this is what should keep you up at night. So, so I want to say to Nina's and to Oleg's point that I think there's market space well before the major players get involved that ends up benefiting the players, but gets you into, okay, what should I be worried about? Okay, I'll stop.
Rob, because of
before you ask me the question, I'm just going to bolt on, if I may, to the question that you asked to the others. And that, remember that there's not just buyers and sellers at the conference. So you have, those people I met that had just finished a project or had finished with a company and they were looking to join another company. And at the same time, you've got companies that are looking to hire people. And then you have people on PLM journeys at different stages. So ones that have just reached a level of PLM maturity and ones that are just starting out. And so with all of these kind of dynamics and also partners, people are saying, okay, I've got some technology, but I haven't got an implementer. So what you're doing is you're bringing this community together and kind of introducing people to each other. And I did that so much in the conference, grabbing two people and pulling them together and saying, I just heard you talk about these things, that they're mutually compatible. So, have a chat. And I think that's, some of the real value that you get from the conference.
So the question to you, because of your famous photo, was, did we have enough, did Maria and the team create enough room for disagreement, curiosity, and emerging voices?
Yes. Yeah, I think Nina's kind of always going to challenge everything, including conferences. And but the Share PLM team, I think they're doing a great job of challenging themselves. I remember last year when they first announced that they were going to do the conference, I knew that it was going to be completely different. And I know that the third evolution is going to be even better than the second evolution. And they do give the time, in the let's say the socializing activities that they build around the conference. One person in the PLM space asked me if it was a retreat for PLM professionals, and he meant that in a slightly critical way, but actually I think that wouldn't be a negative way of describing it, because it's a place where you do create that space to come together and have those like highly valuable interactions. The other thing I'd say as well is that it's so I got a lot of value from the stuff I wasn't expecting. So the presentations that I had pegged as maybe been less interesting, they actually turned it out to be some of the most interesting ones. And the conversations that I thought might have been less interesting also were more interesting. So I think as humans, we're not always the best judge of what is good for us.
Very good.
I want to bring one point, Michael, if possible, about disagreement. So on one side, I'm happy that Rob didn't bring like this disagreement from the first event. I mean, he didn't put this gold chain on me the second time, at least. That was a little bit less disruptive, although maybe this is the lawsuit that goes against this purchasing department. But on the other side, there is a very interesting technique that I learned over time. When you take in notes in conference and other places, you can take notes. Usually you take notes about what you agree with. try to take notes about what you disagree, and you find that you learn more as a result of this. So that's, bringing more disagreement, actually, it's a good thing. So Rob, please bring it again. I mean, we need some purchasing debates.
Well, we're coming to the top of the hour, and I wanted to give everybody a chance to have a last word. And I was thinking, literally, what one word would you give to Share PLM Summit 2026? I want to start with Jos, then Pat, Oleg, Rob, and then Nina and Maria to end. So go ahead, Jos.
Well, one word is a challenge, but I think it felt like being home.
Ah, nice. How about you, Pat?
I'll go with community.
Okay. Oleg?
I always measure every event by the number of things that I need to follow up. The longer and least, the better was the event. So this one event brings the longest list.
Wow. Ah, longest list. Nice. Rob?
I'd say it's a PLM theme, but connection. So, but on the human level and connecting ideas, but also, connecting data.
How about you, Nina?
Invigorating.
I
love the home thing. Actually, the home, it did feel like that. I think personally, it was a bit like going home, and it definitely was like a retreat for those of us who needed it.
I would have said just collaborative. I really appreciated all the collaboration, all different kinds of ways. How about you, Maria? Because you were one of the organizers.
I would have
other than exhausting, probably the first word that comes to mind is exhausting.
No, never. I'd say refreshing.
Okay.
From my side, I think it's so great to experience a different type of PLM event, and I'm always really humbled when everyone kind of appreciates it as much as we want them to. So yeah, I'd say that, and maybe I'll just take 10 seconds to say thank you all to everyone who's in this group, because even leading up to the summit, you've all in some way, shape or form had some input in the organization of the event. So thank you all very much for your support.
Well, thank you for doing such a great job.
Thank you.
Well, thank you to everybody on the panel. This has been really great. So a lot of fun discussion. I think some of the people in this group will get together next week and talk a little bit more about manufacturing bombs. I don't think we've quite gotten into the fist fight that Rob was trying to instigate. Thank you very much, Nina, for joining us. You're welcome anytime to join the group, of course. And Maria, I mean, your schedule's so busy, but when you're available, you're welcome. Thank you, Jos and Oleg, as always. Thanks a lot. And thank you also to our sponsor, Eris. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you. And we'll see you in Harris, hopefully, in 2027.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Done.